Welcome, friends. We're coming to you today from the United Lodge of Theosophists, Washington, D.C. We normally meet every Sunday at 11 o'clock, but the lodge is still closed due to COVID-19. Usually there's a reading from a devotional book, followed by a talk, and then a question and answer period when we're open. But today we're going to come to you on the YouTube with a devotional reading, and then followed by a talk. The talk for the day is individual and group cycles. We follow the declaration of the United Lodge of Theosophists, which was established in 1909 in Los Angeles. Robert Crosby presented this. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification in practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea among Theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization, and it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. The following is a form signed by associates of the United Lodge of Theosophists, being in sympathy with the purposes of this lodge as set forth in its declaration. I hereby record my desire to be enrolled as an associate, it being understood that such association calls for no obligation on my part other than which I myself determine. You all invited us to join us every Sunday at 11 o'clock on Google Meet on the site in the next slide. And now for today's reading and talk. Thank you.
Today's reading comes from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna. The grievous for those that may not be lamented, whilst thy sentiments are those of the expounders of the letter of the law. Those who are wise in spiritual things grieve neither for the dead nor for the living. I myself never was done, nor thou, nor all the princes of the earth, nor shall we ever hereafter cease to be. As the Lord of this mortal frame experienceth therein infancy, youth, and old age, so in future incarnations will it meet the same. One who is confirmed in this belief is not disturbed by anything that may come to pass. The senses, moving toward their appropriate objects, are producers of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, which come and go and are brief and changeable. These do thou endure, O son of Bharata. For the wise man, whom these disturb not, and to whom pain and pleasure are the same, is fitted for immortality. Today's talk, cycles, individual and group. The cycle. The existence of cyclic law in nature has received partial recognition by science. In Theosophy, the law of periodicity is recognized as a fundamental law of the cosmos and one whose application embraces both the visible and the invisible universe. The sphere in which science acknowledges the operation of cyclic law is the physical one, the only aspect of nature with which science is concerned. When we say that science recognizes only physical cycles, we do not wish to say that there exists no recognition by scientists and mankind generally of cycles which transcend purely physical explanations, such as the observation by physicians of the cyclic course taken by most diseases, the general knowledge and acknowledgement that there is a cyclic return of periods of prosperity and reverse, and truism that history repeats itself. These cycles, however, have no known scientific explanation, and their acknowledgement rests on the general experience of mankind. Since science confines its observation to the physical plane, the cycles it considers scientifically proven are those whose inception and culmination can be traced upon the purely physical background of nature, such as the cyclic movement of planets and suns. The scientist then is satisfied once he has reduced these physical cycles to mathematical formula of motion. Not so the occult scientist. The latter, in addition, is a philosopher, and the problem which confronts him is what may be the cause and causes of the various physical movements lined upon the celestial wall. The researchers of the occult scientists have revealed to him the existence of metaphysical cycles within and behind the physical ones. The interior cycles ever occupying the position of causes in relation to those more material. Behind all these causes is there one noumenon, the causeless cause, which is neither subject nor an object of perception. So we have physical cycles that science recognizes, and metaphysical that the occultist looks at, and what is behind is a noumenon. Less cause. By far the greater number of cycles cannot be reduced to physical laws and mathematical formula, since neither their starting point nor their culmination is on the subjective plane. The latter intersect this objective sphere at 2 points: the arc between forming the segment, which represent the purely physical aspect of the cycle. The cycle of birth and death is just such. So we can look at the solar system, the cycle of reincarnation, whether for solar system, planet, man, or atom, has its inception on the highest and inmost plane of the cosmos, the plane of unity and homogeneity. All life, then, begins its downward cycling process from the spirit. As it descends, it becomes denser and denser. The lowest point being the physical plane of matter. The other half of the cycle consists of the swing back to spirit, but never exactly point of the origin, but always in advance of it. So this cycle of reincarnation has really tremendous bearing on our lives, and it has been treated by the teachers of Theosophy with tremendous particularity. So, what is it that reincarnates? An understanding of the cycle of rebirth is dependent first, last, and all time on the knowledge of the nature of the reincarnating entity. We can follow an analogy of the heavenly bodies that moves or cycles around an astronomical orbit. What is it? It's a planet or a sun. There's a center around which cycling process takes place. That center being another heavenly body. In our solar system, the center around which the planets revolve is the sun, while the sun itself, with its attendant planets, revolves in a still larger circle. That which moves through the human cycle is also a definite entity, a spiritual body. What is it? It is manas. And in the enumeration of the principles of man, it is sometimes referred to as the causal body. Following the analogy further, the body, the causal body, has its center and a sun around which it revolves, from which, if truth has to be said about it, it is never separated. So then this is a spiritual one, the spiritual sun. Atma. This is what Sikh doctrine refers us to. Even the physical bodies which revolve around their suns are not separated from these suns. The very fact that they turn in their orbits about their luminaries shows that they are magnetically and electrically connected with their centers. In the key to Theosophy, it is stated that the centripetal force could not manifest itself without the centrifugal in the harmonious revolutions of the spheres, and all the forms and their progress are the products of this dual force in nature. The spirit or body is the centrifugal, and soul or manas is the centripetal spiritual energy. And to produce one result, they have to be in perfect union and harmony. So these are spiritual. Astronomy calls the space in which the heavenly bodies move in their orbits ether. For science, this might be a hypothetical medium, and it's kind of observed when the celestial orbs go about their business in the heavens. But the mind kind of instinctively refuses emptiness. Science says that every portion of this interplanetary matter is of the same nature and uniformity. In other words, every arc of orbits in which the planets and sun revolve is just this unknown ether and nothing more. Theosophy has always taught that the orbits along which the celestial globes move and go about their rounds is more than just material paths, even though that matter be of refined and ethereal composition. The heavenly bodies move along a circular zodiacal highway, and this highway consists of 12 major variations called signs. The planets move in their orbits, but instead of passing through a medium of dead uniformity, they revolve in a living, pulsating path, every point of which has its own peculiar power, quality, and influence. The cycle of reincarnation has been likened to the zodiac. Mr. Judge, in his article called Two Lost Keys, one of which is the zodiac, states, man is himself a zodiacal highway, through which his own particular sun makes a circuit. As our acquaintance through devotion and endeavor with the journey of our own sun through our own human zodiac grows better, we will learn the meaning of the great pilgrimage of the earthly luminary. For it is impossible in this study to learn a little of ourselves without knowing more of the great system of which we are a copy. Man's own particular sun is his reincarnating individuality, manas. The zodiacs through which the latter makes its circuit begins at the spirit, passes through a number of differentiations of primordial substance, until it reaches the physical air, where it assumes a coat of skin. This is the midpoint. From here it ascends again to the starting point of spirit. In order to move through a cycle which extends from meta-spirit down to the grossest matter, the inner ego must clothe itself with vehicles or bodies that is appropriate to the planes through which it journeys. It assumes an additional vehicle, it descends from plane to plane, and then on the return journey, it discards them one by one. But there is one vehicle which the ego keeps all the time, and this constitutes its manmantaric body. The ego is made up of both the indwelling consciousness and its material basis. Manas is called Kshetrajna, or embodied spirit. It is the fire of the mind and self-consciousness alone which is capable of journeying across pleroma and acting as the bridge and link between the highest and the lowest. So the elements constituting the cycle is the reincarnating entity, the cyclic path along which it travels, and the center around which revolution takes place. In essence, these three are one, and the realization of this unity is the object of the cycling process. It is accomplished by union of the reincarnating ego with its parent soul, Atma. So, mastery over the four lower principles carries with it mastery of the planes of matter from which these principles are derived. This results in the realization of the unity of every principle and element in the cycle, hence the attainment of complete mastery over the whole of nature, both visible and invisible. Once the reincarnating ego is fired with aspiration for unity with the whole, the cycle of reincarnation becomes a path of discipleship. And we know how to reach that. Raja Yoga has been described in many places, and it is through Raja Yoga that the unity with the spiritual Sanatman is accomplished. And it is this statement in the voice. The Atma, the latter power can only be attained through obedience to the law of laws, divine compassion. That cast not travel on the path before thou hast become that path itself. Now, Mr. Judge has an article where he shows that we come together with other people. And it is asked in this question whether friends, companions, and those whom we know come back with us. In answering this, he says, we can only turn to the others because signs and records are numb. For in order to answer this question, we have to look at it from all different component parts. Now, there is a definite number of monads in the cycle. At the middle of the fourth round, the door is closed and no one else is coming into the human kingdom. And here we are quoting the secret doctrine, that the number of monads is definite in the system of worlds. And secondly, that the door to human kingdom has been closed for many thousands of years. That is at the middle of the fourth round. Hence, the reincarnating human egos have all met over and over again with the certainty, with every century, of all meeting each other more, still more. There is no escape. The door being closed and the human egos having been numbered since the middle of the fourth round, they meet with increasing frequency because no new acquaintances can come forward from either lower kingdom or other spheres. This, therefore, establishes the probability of encountering at almost every turn egos whom we have been with before in lives on earth. So, whether we like them, dislike them, we have enmity or kindness towards them, all these results will come back to us. Coming back together means that that other person whom we meet, intimately or casually, in family or out of it, has gone back to reincarnation with us. So that cycle of reincarnation is 12 to 1500 years, and that is also the cycle of a civilization. So this coming back in cyclic order has tremendous meaning for each human being individually, and when we come in groups, it means that we have made our karma together. So we're going to act on one another. It would be very easy to figure out with whom we would come back if it was an iron-bound rule, but it is not. And as a soul can come with us into incarnation that had left perhaps 2 cycles before us, meaning 200 years, means that it has karma to expend and it's going to act on us. So, inimical and uncharitable thoughts make for disunion, and every opposite one for harmony. So the skandhas will wait till we are ready to incarnate, and if we are those that injured, condemned, fill the others with anger, we have to face it. These laws act through us with automatic regularity until we know them and bring up counteractions. If we are condemning, punishing, resenting, in short, considering ourselves karmic agents without knowing the meaning of that term, then Mr. Judge says we're sowing dragon's teeth. We are only planting clothes for future sorrow, and we have to come back and face it. This is in cycles also, and one life ideology may carry the soul through that cycle. But generosity, kindness, unselfishness are ideals that will prove sufficient for us in every incarnation. However high our ideal is, and whatever our motive is, working towards those ideals. Man may consider himself kindly, generous, and unselfish if he helps his family. He may feel that he exemplifies the highest ideals of human conduct, but when a man suddenly realizes that the world is not limited to the walls of his own home, that there are those beyond his intimate circle who need his kindness and generosity, it is clear that his ideals in their old form are disintegrating. Old ideas must perish before rebirth in new and more universal forms. All compounds are perishable, except one, the moral nature. So, when our most precious ideas lose their inspiration, dissolving in the face of a wider reality, we suffer a psychological death. Very terrible. Emotionally, we experience the end of the world. Destructive forces in the school of experience have played their part. Our dreams have vanished. But it is not even then impossible for recreation. The same power that gathered together the elements for the first compound of aspirations and assembled better elements in a new compound. No ideal has meaning unless we have dedicated ourselves to its realization. So our end commands our energies of devotion. If not, then it's meaningless, and evolution for him is at a standstill. However, that struggle against all possible odds has its value in strengthening the will that is not wasted. But it will serve higher ends. So if we envision a pledge taken by a man, not to this or that hope for a result, but to a principle to its own highest nature, what practical effect might such a vow produce? Well, first of all, it will enable him to say, in most crucial moments, my universe has crumbled. I will build it on wiser and wider premise. But realize that new structure too may someday fall. This is encountering mental and psychic death. But I shall create for myself a new birth. When the will is thus invoked, when a man consciously assumes a new outlook, turning away from the past and looking forward to the future, he has passed through psychological birth consciously. He might not be able to immediately realize his goals, but he can expect calmly the death of any save universal hopes. He can pass consciously through the psychological and mental death. When will man remember his past lives? Well, when the old attitudes of mind are discarded and they kind of fall down, what value do these have is what the question should be. So when we think about it, the evolution of the soul is a series of progressive awakenings. Old forms and ideas must be discarded. They have fallen away, leaving the soul in turmoil. But their past usefulness should also be considered. At the hour of death, when the principles are near their separation, the soul has opportunity to reflect on every experience of even the most frustrated life. So, the key to mysteries of death and rebirth is with us constantly. We pass many times through the most terrible psychic and mental deaths. Do we have the needed effort, the needed insight, needed energy to reactivate our will and to construct consciously a better psychic and mental universe? If we do, we realize that all death, physical or otherwise, is but the opportunity for another progressive awakening. However, such an attitude and such a will can make death and birth conscious processes for us.